Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ramadan FM. I'm your host today, Tamkin Riaz, and we have an excellent guest for you today. And I'd like to thank the radio stations for allowing us to do the program. Obviously, they're very busy and they've given us this slot. And, every year I try and do something for the community. And today we have got a very, very special guest. And he's a friend of mine for the past 20 years. And the reason he's coming on today is he's just come back from Egypt. So my very good friend Sammy Hegab. Assalamu alaikum, Sammy.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you for having me on the show, Tamkin.
You're more than welcome, Sammy. The reason for this show is it's called Tamkin Talks. And I thought it'd be nice as you've just come back from the Middle East and Egypt. And you can tell us a little bit about your experience because you went out there to help give aid and see what was going on firsthand. So,
Yeah,
Sammy, tell us a background about yourself and then what you were doing in Egypt.
we'll start off when the conflict actually started on the 7th of October. As you know, I have a lot of friends all over the world, in particular in Palestine. And when it all took off, to be honest with you, I thought it wasn't real. Yeah, I thought it was kind of like a false flag operation. I kind of doubted in the beginning that this whole thing actually happened. But once it started to materialize and more information started coming out in the news, I started to get a little bit concerned about my friends. I know lots of professionals in Gaza, doctors, nurses, teachers, academics. So I started to reach out to everyone. I told them, I think something's about to go down, in Gaza. I think it's best for you to leave. And of course, they said, no, it's probably going to settle down soon and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, as the conflict progressed, I started losing contacts with a lot of them. And it came a point when I was actually speaking to a very close friend of mine who lived in the north side of Gaza, and the entire family was relocated. They moved to Khan Yunis, which is going closer to the south side of Gaza, and they were in a refugee camp. And but prior to the whole thing, these guys were well off. Now they're living in tents, and I was actually on a live call with them on a cam. And at that very moment, as we were kind of like joking about the whole thing, just discussing it, and in a light way, and they're telling me about their experience and that kind of stuff. There was an airstrike on the camp, and I lost connection. And at the time, I thought, okay, maybe the internet went down. And about a month, I couldn't reach out to any of them. I didn't actually realize at the point that there was the strike. I just assumed that it was the internet. But as the days went on, I started to get more and more concerned, and I started to reach out to different contacts, journalists that I know in Gaza, to assure me about their well-beings. And I decided, well, I have to do something. I have to find a way to get to Gaza, find out if my friends are okay and that kind of stuff. So my intention was actually to go directly to Gaza. I didn't know that there's no direct flights. There's no way to get to Palestine directly, other than via Egypt, of course. So I decided I would go to Egypt first, and then from there I'll take off to go to Palestine to try to help out and find the whereabouts of
So,
my
so
close
um,
friends.
what did you take with you? What did you
I just
take with you when you knew you were going to go? Bags? What happened?
Yeah, well, so I prepared myself. Obviously, I took a tent. I prepared with like solar panels, my laptop, and essentials, some cash. So I said, okay, I need to go there and get some aid and go in and search for my friends. That was my prime focus initially. Now, when I arrived in Egypt, I realized that the reality of things, that no, people can't just go to Gaza directly. You need permission and that kind of stuff. And it became more difficult for me to get these permissions. It wasn't accessible for anyone. No one can just apply. You have to be part of a diplomatic channel or something like that. So I decided, okay, now I'm in Egypt. What can I do? So I started to reach out to the victims in hospitals. I started to reach out to people that I've just arrived into Egypt from Gaza, and trying to get basically some information about what's happened, and the situation. How can I help out while I was in Egypt? So it all started from there, really. So I started helping these families out, and eventually I managed to reach out to the friends that I was looking for, and
So when you said you were helping these families out, they're in hospital. So how were you helping them? They're in hospital.
yeah. So what I did first is I went to the hospital, looking for particular injured families that I was told about. Once I reached out to them, I realized that actually when they arrived into to Egypt, a lot of them didn't arrive even barefooted. They didn't have a change of clothes. A lot of them just arrived with what they were wearing, when they were evacuated out of Gaza. So I just started to identify all their needs. What they need: shoes, they need new clothes, they need food, that kind of stuff, money, that kind of thing. So I started providing them with these essential items that they required, and from there I started to reach out to other patients in the hospital and new patients that were arriving in Gaza. I made contact with the security of the hospitals, and from there I reached out to other hospitals and so on. So it kind of expanded. So the circle expanded until I had over 300 contacts in Egypt, and a few hundred also in Gaza as well. Obviously, their extended families and so on. So I started building a contact list of the people that I could serve. Unfortunately, alone I couldn't serve everybody, so I started to reach out for other volunteers, other Muslims and people that care about these situations, and they started to help out. And I mean, I couldn't have done it alone, really. I was only limited in the funds and my abilities. So if it wasn't for all these volunteers that stepped forward, I wouldn't have been able to serve everybody. But there came to a point when I started to collect unused items and start delivering these unused items to people that needed them, toys even medical stuff as well. I started to reach out to pharmaceutical companies, pharmacists, anyone that I know, and they just started providing me with things that people were asking for. And from there, I started to identify how to send aid into Gaza through people that are going back, people that have access to returning to Gaza, truck drivers that are delivering aid. So simple items that people were asking about in Gaza, maybe some medicine they're lacking and that kind of stuff. So I started providing these simple items along with some of the contacts that are going back, and ways to help these people in Gaza as well. Because ultimately, I mean, the people that are in Egypt, at least they could be approached in some way, and it can be helped. But the people in Gaza, it is only through limited means, unless you get food packs and that's being delivered through convoys, or someone reaches out in some way. So yeah, it's more challenging for people in
So
Gaza.
so did you join the NGOs or charities, or this is completely on yourself to reach out to charities who are working in Gaza?
I did reach out. I did reach out to a number of charities, Egyptian charities as well as Pakistani charities and UK charities. So I did reach out to anyone that's operating in Egypt, and offered my assistance. I volunteered to a lot of them, and in fact I did take food packs and delivered it in local neighborhoods in Cairo and outside of Cairo as well. Um, I went out with a charity, a well-known Pakistani charity that were delivering food aid, and I gave them a list of some contacts that I have, and we went to visit these families and provided them with food aid as well. So it wasn't just purely on my own.
So
I was also
mainly
reaching out.
you, so mainly you were helping people from Gaza who were in Egyptian hospitals,
Mhm.
yeah, and they just came with the clothes on their back. And what sort of injuries did they have? Were the minor injuries, major
A
injuries,
very,
trauma injuries? What? Yeah.
very, very severe injuries. Some, of course, less serious. Some were treated, some couldn't be treated. There was one case that was referred to Italy, as well. So some of the cases they couldn't be treated in Egypt, so they were referred outside to other hospitals, European hospitals. Of course, leg injuries, shrapnel, trauma. Children react in a strange way. I'll tell you one incident where I was actually just playing with the children in the courtyard of the hospital, and a helicopter flew past, and suddenly all the children just grabbed hold of me tightly, and I thought, oh, what's this? What's the reaction? Suddenly they just started hugging me and holding my leg and holding my arm tightly, and I didn't understand what was going on. But apparently what happened, one of the parents actually explained to me, was because as soon as they heard the helicopter, they assumed there was going to be some bombing. So they just came to me, rushed to me to protect them against the bombing. And I didn't actually realize at the time that the helicopter flew past, because it's something that you just don't, you don't notice. You're used to it. But for the children, a simple thing like an airplane flying past or a helicopter, it affects them in a serious way. And of course, I heard a lot of traumatic stories from the patients, the people that have escaped the conflict. It gave me nightmares. For days I couldn't sleep, as if I was there. Although I wasn't an eyewitness, but just hearing the stories, it's too horrific to even share on the radio. It's not even something that you can even hear on the mainstream media. It's just, if it's true, and I heard it from a number of,
Right.
of eyewitnesses, it's just complete genocide. It's crime against humanity. Let's just put it that way. It's serious.
So a lot of people in the UK and around the world are giving aid and money, etc. So how is that being distributed?
A lot of the charities. I can't speak on behalf of the charities, but I can speak on the people in the ground. Well, people in Egypt that are delivering aid, like the truck drivers, and I can speak with the contacts I have in Gaza. What they report to me, a lot of them in Gaza do not get the aid, and it's probably because the percentage. I mean, the amount of aid that's actually going in is tiny in comparison to the large, uh, the large population that exists currently in Rafah. And the only aid that goes in goes to the south side of Gaza, which is like in Rafah, Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, but now it's more in the Rafah area, because obviously the IDF have closed the roads in between, you so people can't travel between areas, and if they attempt, they just get shot without any question. Anyone that's seen by an IDF soldier is immediately shot, irrespective of whatever the nationality is. They don't ask you, are you British or Palestinian or Egyptian, or it doesn't matter for them. They just shoot anyone, shoot to kill. That's how they behave. Because ultimately they're trying to ethnically cleanse the land and claim it as their own. That's their mission: is to kill as many humans as possible, and not just humans, even animals. They just shoot the animals. They shoot anything that moves. But unfortunately, not a lot of them do not get aid. I've asked all my contacts in Gaza, as soon as you do get aid for free, take a picture of it, tell me the contents of the aid. So I do have some NGOs that do deliver. I think one of them that I've got a couple of pictures of boxes. It's called like World Food Program or something like that. So I've seen them. A few of my contacts took pictures. But then I also get reports where people have said that they actually got the food pack, but they were asked to pay for it. So the people that are distributing the food, the aid, they're charging money for whoever can afford to pay for it. They get the food pack. So I did get reports of that as well. And I got reports where people have had a huge box of aid, but when they opened it, it was just a box of chocolate or just a pack of biscuits. It wasn't. It's like a box, an empty box, effectively almost empty box. So obviously the content has disappeared in some way on the journey.
So I've seen a lot and lots of pictures of boxes and boxes of foods with labels
Yeah.
on a big banner, and there's thousands and thousands of boxes. So surely they're getting in because we are all donating.
Yeah, I hope so,
aren't we? We're all
inshallah.
donating. We see the pictures. So where are those photographs from? Are they in Gaza? Are they
Well,
outside
I,
Gaza?
I
Or
I can tell you about the
how
journey.
do they
I,
get those NGOs working?
I haven't been on the journey because I'm not allowed to cross to Sinai. I wasn't allowed to cross. The furthest point I reached was Ismailia, which is the just the last point before you go into the Sinai Peninsula. So I can tell you what happens. I mean, obviously the charities, they prepare the convoy and everything like that. But once it goes into Sinai, of course there are other other parties that handle the stuff. It obviously gets searched from the Egyptian side by the Red Crescent and other organizations. So I don't know what happens in between there. But I can tell you about the journey. What happens? It goes to first Arish, it gets searched there. They offload everything. They make sure that the aid is suitable to go to Gaza. When it goes to Rafah border, instead of going directly into Palestine, it goes to the Egyptian Rafah border. It turns and drives another 100 kilometers away. I mean, the distance between the Egyptian border and the Palestinian border is very short distance. You can actually walk across. It's not far. But they're ordered to drive all the way to Israel, to another border called Karam Abu Salim. It goes into Israel. The IDF, they empty all the boxes. That's what I was told. They throw the stuff on the ground and they take whatever they want. No one questions them. The driver doesn't say anything to them. They can just do whatever they want. And then they order the drivers to pack up their stuff and whatever remains, and then they then schedule the entry. Of course, if they're allowed to enter, obviously there's protests. I mean, some of the drivers I spoke to, they said they get stopped by the settlers from entering. They do protests in front of the thing. They prevent them from entering, so they get delayed. But they schedule the convoy. Once it goes into Gaza, now it goes into Gaza from Karam Abu Salim, then he hands it over to the NGO that operates there, which is mostly it will be like the Red Crescent Gaza side, and they distribute this stuff. So another third party would distribute the aid. They have no control, obviously, on whatever who they decide how they distribute the aid and so on. So it's up to the people on the ground in Gaza. So of course, not everyone distributes aid equally. They might be giving some of the aid to their personal contacts, their family and friends, and they might be selling some. I don't know, but I've heard a lot of rumors from Gaza. And of course, it's only a smaller percentage that does go into Gaza from the big convoy that's entered. It will be a smaller percentage. So, inshallah, hopefully that's changing. But I am always asking the people in the ground to report back to me and let me know of the situation. But a lot of them are not receiving aid.
That's very, very sad to hear because here in the UK, I can only speak. I go to lots of charity events and they ask for money and whatever, and I'm very surprised that it's not getting through. Even if 50% were to get through, I'd be very happy.
Yep.
But you're saying very little gets through. So
Yep.
what percentage, in your opinion, from what you've seen, what you've heard, you have people on the ground in
Yep.
Palestine, you have people on the ground on the border, in the hospitals who have been coming in and out. What do they say? How much aid do you think is actually getting through?
Into Gaza, it will be a very small percentage. Of course, now there's more of a push to send more humanitarian aid in, but that's only a tiny percentage of the stuff. So the only way for the people in Gaza to get help is by us sending them money, because ultimately sometimes they get offered for sale. Some of that aid that goes in gets offered for sale. So the only way they can survive is if they got money to pay for it, if they can buy it from the market. And then there's other traders that deliver goods as well into Gaza, and they deliver goods for sale. So some of these items do enter as well if it's for trade. It's not charities, but charities somehow along the supply chain something goes wrong. There's not a lot of monitoring that goes on. So I've always asked people in in NGOs and charities to verify that their delivery is actually reaching Gaza, not just by pictures, not someone just sending them pictures from within Gaza. That's giving up, because I could be giving 10 boxes to my friends, and I could take pictures of my friends while I'm giving them 3 boxes, but then I've got another 1,000 boxes which I charge for, which no one sees. So the NGOs or the charities might see these 10 boxes being given for free and assume that all their aid is being distributed for free. So yeah, I've always asked people that are operating and sending aid in to make sure, and ask the people on the ground in Gaza that are distributing the aid to take numbers and IDs of every beneficiary of the aid, so then the charity can then verify. If they can call each person or send a random message and just ask them, I could do like a survey. What do you think of the aid? Is it sufficient for you, for your family? Did you pay for it? Ask them random questions to just verify that they are getting the aid for free and they're getting the actual content of the aid. Small items can go in, like for example, if it's like a box of, I'm not paracetamol, but any other medication. There's people that are suffering from brain tumor and cancer, and there is no medication for like cancer treatment and so on. So small items can go in, yeah. But when it's like a big cargo, obviously they will get searched and stuff. But if you send some cash with someone you trust, and you deliver, and you say, okay, I want you to deliver this envelope to so and so. If you got a contact, and they will deliver it. I've actually delivered money to people that I know in Gaza in that way, but through a trusted party. So yeah, that's the only way that I feel it's actually more effective, to send them money and they leave them to buy the stuff locally, which although it's very expensive, or just send more aid in. Or if Egypt decides it's something more political side, if Egypt does enforce sending aid directly into Gaza without sending it to Israel, that will be even better. But it's a government level decision. And then the other way that we can help these people is to help them escape Gaza. I know we don't want people to give up on their land and stuff, but what I'm saying, the government should consider allowing these people to come into Egypt and get treatment, because I don't know how they pick and choose who to evacuate from Gaza at the moment. Like, I know a family, maybe like 150 individuals that got injured, and they all have very similar injuries, and yet the Red Crescent only took 2 or 3 of them out and left the rest. And there was one mother who was in a very stressful situation because they evacuated her and left her children behind. And I didn't understand why they just took the mother, and her children are also injured, maybe not as severely injured as her, but they left the children in a tent all alone, and they evacuated her. I didn't know why they did that. And unfortunately, to evacuate her children, they wanted money. It's called tansik. The Arabic word is coordination. So you have to pay for people to exit. So that's another way to evacuate the people that are injured, by paying the fee, the exit fee. Call it what you want, but yeah, that's the only way to get them out and they could get treatment, because free exits is only limited to a very small number.
Treatment, but
Yes.
I've heard that once they get their treatment, they've come from Gaza and the affected areas. Whoever is lucky enough to get to Egypt into a hospital, have the treatment, then I hear they're sent straight back. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. They're offered. They're not sent back directly while the conflict is going on. What happens is they get offered the option to go back, and that's actually one of the ways that I try to deliver aid, like money or simple small items. Because if someone's going back, I say, well, okay, could you take this envelope, or could you take this box of paracetamol or painkillers or whatever with you. So that's the way I deliver the stuff in through these channels. But they essentially, what happens if they get treatment, they get placed in like a a refugee area. So there's allocated areas like housing areas. They're not the best of places like a camp, and they can stay there temporarily until the war ends, or they can apply to migrate to a different country. So some individuals are applying to migrate to Algeria. Algeria is more welcoming to Palestinians. So they're applying to migrate to Algeria. They're applying to migrate to like France or a different European country where they have some relative there and so on. They're applying to go to migrate to Australia, for example. I know a family that's trying to get permission to migrate to various countries. So that's the way. I mean, if they can go to a different country, they don't have to go back to Gaza if they've got permission to leave Egypt to a different country. But they're not. They certainly can't stay in Egypt unless they get permission. They get a resident permit, and they have to pay for that as well. And they have to show they have a sufficient income and that kind of stuff. They have a job. Similar way to if you want to migrate to the UK, you have to show that you have an income, you're self-sufficient and so on. So you have to show the same thing. So it's not open for everyone. Unfortunately.
So, how long were you there on the border and in Egypt doing all this work?
I actually went there, and of course, like I was saying to you, I wanted to actually go into Gaza to help out in some way. But I ended up staying almost 3 months, and I just returned back in March. So I stayed almost 3 months in Egypt, just traveling around, not just in Cairo,
So,
going north, south, east, west, wherever I get told that there's actually a family, I would try to visit that family. I'll try to go out with them. I'll try to arrange like a day out, like especially if they have children. I'll say, look, let's go for a shopping spree, and we just go to the supermarket, a shopping center, and we'll take them out and have like a fun day out, just to get them out of that mood. Yeah, so
mashallah.
I did
So
various
you've
things.
been so
Yep.
this money that you have, this is your own personal money that you've been using mostly.
Mhm.
What about your job? Are you retired or what? Or you went out for 3 months. That's a
Yeah,
long time. I've been out, but when I go out, it's a few weeks, 10 days, 15 days,
yeah,
20 days to
yeah.
help out. But 3 months is a long
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
time.
To answer
So
you, what happened?
you
What?
yourself,
Yeah.
then you can
So
look after others. Yeah.
yeah. So what actually happened? Because I own a small business, a consultancy business, and I actually put everything on hold. And also, I'm sure you're aware as well. I do PhD research, and I put that on pause because I wasn't sure if I was going to return once I go to Gaza. First of all, so I kind of like put everything on hold, and I went just what for one way. But this whole experience actually had a transformation effect on me, because I feel the purpose in life isn't just about making money. Okay, you have to make money to survive, but you have to also think about the greater purpose in life, and that's service to others. You know, service to many leads to greatness. So I feel there's a greater purpose. Okay, so I'm running out of funds at the moment. I'm in a dire situation, and that is why while I was in Egypt, I was reaching out to other people, family and friends, and new contacts, or anyone that wants to support. Not necessarily support financially, but maybe support with unused items. So I started reaching out. Otherwise, I would have just kept silent, and I would have done it all anonymously if I had sufficient funds. But I started to run out. After a month, I was literally just walking everywhere. I couldn't even afford to take public transport. That's how it difficult it became for me. But I just had to keep going, and I had to not show my weakness, or my situation. I wanted to give hope to especially our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Uh, so it wasn't optional for me. It's an obligation for me to step up to the plate and help out. Just that's the purpose of life. That's why Allah brought us here, is to serve others through these actions.
Mashallah. But it may have been easier for you to volunteer and help with other people on the ground and charities.
Mm.
mashallah, you did a lot. I know, well, as a
Mm.
fact, because we've been in contact on the phone and WhatsApp while you were there, and we did a few things. And I know you went to wholesalers, you went to markets, you tried to get the best deals, make your money stretch, buy toys, food, clothes, medication for children. But if you were able to help with a charity, would that have helped, the one already working and existing there, as well as what you were doing?
That's exactly what I
Did
was
you look
doing. I was
into
actually
that?
reaching out to a lot of the charities. If I can mention a few, Gosh Al Khidmat Foundation, for example, I approached them. The representatives that were operating in Egypt. I was in contact with them frequently. And I was offering any charity, anyone that wants to help the cause, I would volunteer with them for free. I wasn't asking anything in return. And I actually approached the Red Crescent as well because they have access to a lot of channels. They have access to actually going to Gaza as well. They have permissions to all these things. And I thought, okay, if I volunteer with the Red Crescent, I would be able to then go to other hospitals that I didn't have access to. But unfortunately, they refused me. They just said to me, "Look, we don't want you to join us." And I said, "Why? I'm volunteering for free." And they said, "We haven't got a job." And I said, "I'm not looking for a job. I'm volunteering for free. I'm literally asking you for me to serve you, and I'm prepared to even to finance my travels, and I'm prepared to donate items, and you can take the credit for it. I'm not after credit here." But they just said no. And they also did something very strange as well. They started going to all the patients that I was donating to and helping, and they asked them not to speak to me again. And they started asking him strange questions like what conversations do you have with Sammy? What kind of questions did he ask you and that kind of stuff? Which the patients actually found it very strange because I wasn't asking them anything secretive. All I was asking him was like, okay, what nappy size do you need? The Pampers. What size does your child take? What shoe size? I was asking him simple questions like that, but it didn't convince the Red Crescent, and they made a complaint to the hospital, and they were asking the hospital security not to allow me into the hospital, and the hospital guards were actually my friends, so they came back to me and told me that, and they said, "Look, don't worry about it. You're still allowed to still come and visit your friends and so on. We'll still allow you in." So yeah, I had complaints from the Red Crescent simply because I told them I wanted to volunteer with you, but they didn't welcome that. They felt a bit suspicious about me. Why would someone come and work for free? Why would someone sacrifice their life and their livelihood to serve other brothers and sisters from Palestine? It didn't convince them. Yeah, so
Very
unfortunately, some
sad,
some
very.
some some didn't welcome me. Some did. Some appreciated my contribution. Some didn't. Yeah.
Yes, we have. So, are you thinking of going back to future, or now that you've seen for 3 months, you are now better prepared? You can take stuff from here. Uh, you know, Actually, the money side is very good. That you can actually give cash, but
Mm.
the cash arrives okay there. They don't take percentage from the cash. Can you do money transfers
Okay.
to
Good questions. Very good questions.
individuals? How
Yeah.
come?
The official channels like Western Union and so on, they're blocked. You're not allowed to send money into Gaza. Okay, so they don't allow that. But you can send money, like I said, if someone's going back into Gaza, you can give them an envelope and they can go in. If you trust that person, of course, not just some random person. So someone that you know and you've established some sort of rapport with them, you could then give them the envelope, or you can send via like PayPal or different money transfer services online, digital ones. But unfortunately, on the ground in Gaza, they charge a high percentage. It could be anything from between 10 to 20% because of the low liquidity. So all these money exchange services that these businesses that are operating in Gaza, they're charging for that because of low liquidity. So if you're sending £100, expect £80 to reach the beneficiary. So £20 will be lost. The other option is if the beneficiaries have a bank account on, Bank of Palestine, for example, although the bank is closed, the cash machines are still working. So you can actually do an international money transfer directly to their bank account. As long as they've got the card, the debit card, they can go to the cash machine, and not all the times they can withdraw cash, but they are. What I'm hearing is they are actually filling the cash machines. So they are actually putting money into the cash machines. There is the employee that's filling up the cash machines is still refilling cash machines, but only in certain locations, like in Rafah area, where the IDF hasn't entered. They haven't entered into Rafah yet, so they're still kind of operating that. Other areas of Gaza, unfortunately, the banks are all destroyed, the infrastructure's destroyed. So yeah, that's not going to work. But if someone's in Rafah, they'll be able to go to a cash machine, and if they got the debit card, they can withdraw money. So you can send money in that way, do a money transfer directly from bank to bank. So that's another way. But then, unfortunately, that would only work, like I said, if you got a debit card. A lot of them, they've actually lost the debit card because they've been they've moved from one area to the next, and so they've lost that during their movements. Yeah.
So roughly how much do you think does it cost to have a meal for a day for one person or a child? You know, people want to donate and send money. How much does that cost? Here, it's what, £5 for a very, very simple meal. But how much is it there?
Look, Tamkin, I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, although, for example, I'm just giving you an example of Egypt. Although in Egypt, it's hyperinflation over there, things are really expensive. £100, I would be able to get enough to feed 60, maybe 80 people, right, for £100 sterling. The money can stretch, right? Especially a lot, like you've mentioned, I know wholesalers and traders and supermarkets. And a lot of the business owners, once they came to know that I'm actually supporting Palestinians and that kind of stuff, they reduced their margins on profit margin. And some of them actually gave me goods for free as well, items that are about to expire or something. They just said, okay, take the stock for free. So I was able to stretch the money. However, in Gaza, unfortunately, you can say the traders are exploiting, or there's limited supply. The prices are very expensive. So to feed one family, it could cost you something like $50 just for one family, or even maybe $30 for an individual. But if you spend $50, you could probably feed a small family for $50, which sounds expensive, but unfortunately things over there are very, very expensive. I mean, a can of beans, it could be like £10. Something that costs pennies here, it could be pounds over there.
So what about things like water? Essential. You need air, you need water minimum, then you need a little bit of food. They probably just get bread and some beans.
Flour, yeah.
So what does a bottle of water cost then? There, any ideas?
I don't know the cost of the bottle of water, but they don't get clean water most of the time. They try to drink like seawater, and they try to filter it out, and they drink, they reuse the water. They have innovative ways of filtering and cleaning water, but unfortunately they don't have mineral water. They don't have that luxury unless it's sold over there. Of course, I haven't been there, so I can't see what's sold, but a lot of my friends do not have that luxury. They use whatever water is available, unfortunately.
That's very, very sad. So when are you thinking of going back?
Yeah, so my plan at the moment is I'm looking to set up a foundation in Scotland first of all, and once that's up and running, I'm planning to go, inshallah, maybe after Ramadan, maybe next month, or soon after that, and I would try to set up a system over in Egypt as well, so there could be consistent support of these families, because a lot of the families that are in Egypt, they're struggling to pay their rent, they're struggling to survive on a day-to-day basis, they don't have a job, they don't have any source of income, there's no benefit system in Egypt, so you just have to survive. So there has to be a support structure for these families that are in Egypt, or they're trying to settle in Egypt. And I'd also like to do with the foundation is to reach out to immigration lawyers and agree with them a rate for them to take on case by case, and try to get these families to reunite with other extended families that are elsewhere in the world, or in Egypt or elsewhere, so they have a legal status in the country rather than being illegal in the country and so on. So yeah,
One of the
I want to do
ways
more, inshallah.
One of the ways you could do is reach out to charities here who are working there and say, been there for 3 months to Egypt. I have a little bit of experience. I know families in need. Can I volunteer with you? And when they go, you are then under their umbrella, as well as you can do your own things as well
Yeah,
as.
yeah,
So these large charities, I think if you were to get in contact with the right people in those charities, the right
yeah.
person, I'm sure you could go that route.
Yes, I've actually tried that before I went first time. You know, I was literally I was going to every single charity that's planning to send any aid convoy into Gaza, and I was reaching out to them, and I spoke to some CEOs, chairmen of charities, some of the major charities. I'm not going to mention their names here, and they said, "Oh, brother, you just let us know once you reach Egypt. We'll be in touch." As soon as I reached Egypt, they didn't they didn't respond back again. And they weren't interested in so on. But a lot of the charities that are preparing aid in Egypt, they didn't enter Gaza themselves. They hand over the convoy at the border of Sinai in Port Said or Ismailia. They hand it over to a third party, an Egyptian partner, let's say, and that Egyptian partner takes it over into Rafah, and then they hand it over again to a Palestinian partner. So it changes hands. So yeah, unfortunately,
Mhm.
they
And
don't go into Gaza. Yeah, yeah,
every time it changes hand, it gets less and less and less and
exactly.
less and
Yes,
less,
yes.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Well, we've only got a few moments left, few minutes left. So I'd like to thank Ramadan Radio FM, 87.7 FM, for having us. You have done, mashallah, 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 fantastic, fantastic work, helping all these families. You are going to go back. I will try and get hold and I know. I'll try and introduce you as well to them, and those
Mhm.
especially who are on the ground at the border or in time. Doctors and people that I know who say go and they go in and they out. They're only allowed to go for a certain period of time. I'll get in touch with them as well. But mashallah, you're doing fantastic, fantastic work. May Allah reward you great for everything that you have done.
Mashallah,
What can
Ameen.
we do to help? What can
Well,
we do to help?
well, first of all, I
I'd
mean,
like us,
you was
you,
gonna have a great guest on today. I think he was a doctor that actually just came back from
yeah,
Gaza,
yes.
so I was actually keen to hear
A
his
doctor who
perspective.
was in Gaza
Yeah.
came back, and there was a Dr. Muhammad. And what he was saying
Uh-huh.
is that he doesn't want to come on because
Okay.
he may be tired, I think, around end of Rome. So he didn't want to come on air. I
Uh-huh.
said, we can blank out. He said, no, they know they have of finding, and he does not want to jeopardize doing by
Hmm.
coming on the radio show to Dr. Muhammad, who just came back and he was
Yeah.
actually in Gaza.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he last minute he's going back.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of,
Cause
I have people that I know who
yeah.
want to stay anonymous
Uh-huh.
because they are doing this, but if people find out who they are, they may not come back. Let's put it
I
that way.
understand. Yes. Yes. I
But
understand.
I'm surprised, but you have to be careful as well, Sammy, because
Yeah.
now your face is there and people know.
Yeah.
You have to be
And
very, very careful.
honestly,
That's why
Tamkin.
I'm suggesting that you
Yeah.
provide
Yeah.
a charity.
Yeah, honestly, Tamkin, you know, because I'm a Muslim, and you know, I read the Quran. I'm not really that good in Arabic. I can speak Arabic, but I'm very weak in reading. But there are verses in the Quran where Allah says, "Do not be afraid of them, but be afraid of me." Shouldn't be afraid of anything other than Allah. So I believe strongly, firmly in these verses from Allah, and therefore I'm not scared of anyone. I know I want the best. I'm not there trying to cause destruction or anything like that. I'm trying to build. I'm trying to save lives. And I respect everyone,
Mash.
irrespective of their race or creed or gender or whatever. I respect everyone because I believe that we all originated from Adam. We're all brothers and sisters. It's the ideologies, the racist ideologies, the fascists, and these ideologies that are causing friction in the communities and causing friction within humanity. And this is what we're actually at war against. Is hate. Is racism. We are against these kind of ideologies. So I'm promoting peace.
Absolutely
So
correct.
if they don't like it, they want to do whatever they would. I had incidences in Egypt. I had mistreatment in Egypt, unfortunately, because they were always suspicious about me. Why would someone come from the UK, come all the way, give up his livelihood just to serve others? It doesn't click with some people over there, and they always suspect you that you're some sort of a spy or something, and they're trying to frame you in some crime or something. So I had some instances which I didn't want to mention on the
No, no,
radio, but
that's
I'm not afraid of anyone, to be honest with you. I'm not afraid of anyone except
mashallah.
Allah.
May Allah give you more
Allah is my
strength and may
protector, and
Allah
that's it.
guide us and you. And I'd
Yes,
like to thank Ramadan Radio FM live 87.7 FM. Inshallah, again, we will do another program next week. Jazakallah
inshallah.
khair. Thank you very much, Sammy.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.